Alright, motherfucks. It's another Thursday morning up here in this bitch as I do the video on my walk. You know what I'm saying? Which means last night was Wednesday night cucks, which means that we had the Wednesday night wars going on. Now, I happened to watch both shows last night. I was playing some of that Persona 5 Strikers up in this bitch, and I realized that I can watch all this shit on my phone because I have Hulu Plus TV Live, whatever the fuck it's called, right? Which was actually pretty convenient because now I realized that on days when I don't feel like playing Persona or anything else, I can actually watch both shows at the same time. You know what I mean? I can watch one show on my TV and the other on my phone or tablet or wherever the fuck I want to watch it, right? Which is pretty interesting, right? Because it gives me the opportunity to pretty much kill two birds with one stone, right? Watch 4 hours of TV in 2 hours. And I think I could do it because, you know, this isn't exactly like Sherlock Holmes, right? It's fucking simple shit for the most part, you know? But just because I watched both doesn't mean that both of these shows deserve some mention, right? We're going to talk about a few things here and there, but we're not going to do like a full review just because it would take like forever to talk about everything that happened on the show. So, for example, perfect example, right? On AEW, the main event was like Mark Quinn and Matt Hardy versus Dark Order's John Silver and Adam Page. I believe that's what it was, you know, that sounds right in my head. Like, who gives a fuck about that? Like, nobody cares, you know? Like, the thing that closed the show was, like, the tag teams brawling each other because they're all going to compete in the tag team, like, Casino Battle Royal, right? So, nobody really cares about that. Like, far more interesting things happen on the show, you know? Same thing with NXT, right? Like, the last match was, like, Finn Balor and Roderick Strong in a throwaway match that we all knew Finn Balor was going to win. So, why would anyone care about that? Like, again, far more interesting things happen on the show, motherfucks. So, with respect to NXT, right? This was a pretty bad episode. I ain't gonna lie, right? The realities are what the realities are. Finn Balor just does not feel like a champion. You know, he does not feel like a champion even in NXT. So him feuding with Adam Cole again is no different than him feuding with Kyle O'Reilly. There's absolutely no difference. And him having a match today with Roderick Strong makes no difference. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing as his match, which we're supposed to anticipate, between him and Adam Cole. Like, there's no difference between anyone in the, I was gonna say inner circle, but same shit, motherfucks, Undisputed Era. There's no difference at all. So who cares? You know what I mean? Who gives a shit which one Finn Balor is gonna wrestle against? Finn Balor's wrestling style with this size of guy is the same shit. Now, some of the matches are okay. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's shit. Like, I actually prefer Finn Balor wrestling these guys than ridiculous shit like Finn Balor powerbombing Lashley and beating him, which is just preposterous, honestly, you know? So, that's kind of good, but at the same time, it's like, yo, I'm sick and tired of this feud, right? Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne. Finn Balor versus Roderick Strong. It's the same shit. It's not like Roderick Strong and Pete Dunne are these two dynamic performers, right? Where it's like, oh, how are they going to answer these questions? How are they going to answer these moves? How is he going to counter this and that? It's the same shit. It's going to be the same exact thing. You know, eventually Roderick Strong is going to either hit or not hit the end of Heartache, right? Which, if he hits it, Finn Balor is going to 100% kick out of it just because Finn Balor is like way up on the card, right? Eventually Finn Balor is going to hit his two moves and he's going to pin him. You know, does it really matter who Finn Balor does the coup de grace to? Whether it's Adam Cole or fucking Roderick Strong? No, it doesn't matter at all. No one cares, right? Good feuds are what make good wrestling matches. Because people that understand good booking realize that the difference between wrestlers isn't that great. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Stone Cold beating up Booker T or Stone Cold beating up The Rock makes no difference because The Rock and Booker T are similarly sized. Their moves are similar in some ways, right? Booker T is a bit more athletic, obviously, right? But it's their personalities that make the feud different, right? It's The Rock's personality that pulls something else out of Stone Cold. And it's Booker T's personality that pulls another thing out of Stone Cold, right? That's why we have all these classic moments between Booker T and Stone Cold, and obviously Stone Cold and The Rock, right? Hell, even between The Rock and Booker T. But in NXT, because people have no personalities, it just comes down to, oh, it's going to be the same exact match, except like they're going to do their own little spots. None of the spots are particularly that amazing, so it's like, who gives a shit, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, this feud, I'm tired of it. I mean, but primarily I'm tired of Finn Balor being the champion. Like, the real champion should be Pat McAfee. That's the only guy that I believe deserves to hold the title. Like, he's the only one that's good. Until later in the show, motherfucks, when we had the debut of LA Knight. All right. Now, here's the thing about LA Knight. All right. The facts speak louder than our desires. Okay. Now, I like LA Knight. I mean, I've made I've made no qualms about the fact that I am happy that he was signed by NXT, and that apparently, so it would appear, he was signed and put directly on TV. Like, he didn't have to go and like wait a few weeks, you know, because he's an experienced guy. Same thing with MSK, really. Like, they just signed him. Like, 1 week I see on WWE.com they've signed like Zachary Wentz and then Desmond Xavier, or I think that's his name, right? And then the next week they're MSK. They're already like repackaged, you know, because they're experienced guys. They don't need to like start from zero. So same thing with LA Knight. Now, he cut his promo. It was a good promo, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? I knew as soon as he came out, I thought to myself, hater, if this guy fucking cuts the same promo as Bobby Roode when Bobby Roode debuted, this has Bobby Roode written all over it, right? And I'm afraid that's what he did. He cut that same cliche dog shit promo of I am unlike everyone else here. I'm gonna change the game, and I'm not. And his thing was, I'm not the GOAT because that's overplayed. I'm LA Knight. Like, you know, nothing really great happened here. Let's be honest, right? LA Knight is good. He's good in the ring. He's good on the mic, but he's not much better at either of those things than, let's say, Bobby Roode. I actually think Bobby Roode is the perfect comparison for LA Knight. Like, almost directly. You know what I mean? Like, Bobby Roode came in later in his career, but still in his prime, you could argue. Right? LA Knight, same thing. I think he's like 36, 37. You know, not a good time to start your WWE career. But he's in his prime now. They're both good talkers. They're both big, strong guys. Right? But that's about it. I mean, like, I want to see LA Knight become dominant and become a champion in WWE, not NXT. I don't care about that. But I'm afraid that it's going to have the same trajectory as Bobby Roode. I have no reason to believe otherwise. You see, this is why I say the things I say, motherfucks. Because even though when it pains me, right? So like, let's compare what I'm saying now to what I said about Karrion Kross, right? Like, Karrion Kross, I didn't particularly like him. You know, I never really watched him in TNA, so I don't really like him. I don't hate him either. You know what I'm saying? I have nothing against him. But I see him and I'm like, I just see Jobber. I just see Samoa Joe. You know, you show me Karrion Kross and I'm like, this guy's going to have a Samoa Joe career. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be this dominant WWE champion that everyone thinks. In my opinion, right? But, for example, someone like LA Knight that I actually like and I enjoy, I also have to be impartial and have to say it like it is. I feel that at this point, LA Knight is going to have a Bobby Roode career. I would not be surprised if he becomes Dolph Ziggler's next partner. You know what I mean? Like, straight up, when I say Bobby Roode career, I mean exactly the same. I would not be surprised if this guy goes off and tag teams with some other showy guy. You know? So, hopefully that's not what happens. Hopefully he actually becomes, a main eventer and a big-time player. I want to see good things happen to him because I believe that he works hard and he's, like, entertaining, you know? But I'm afraid, motherfucks, and this fear was bolstered further when we had the match. After his promo, there was a match directly after. It was Bronson Reed, who I cannot believe still has a job, and fucking Cameron Grimes, motherfuckers. Cameron Grimes, one of my favorites in NXT. Right? Cameron Grimes is fucking awesome. Let's just all agree on that, you know? So I was hoping, obviously, that Cameron Grimes would win for two reasons. One, I like Cameron Grimes, and two, I don't believe that Bronson Reed has any business being in WWE. Like, this guy, I mean, every time I speak about him, all I think in my head is Bull Dempsey. You know, this guy is obviously the next Bull Dempsey. He's never going to be anything. You know what I mean? I don't even know why they hired him. It's a complete waste of money. You know, just give his spot to anyone else on the card, and nothing would change. You know, the Colossus, Bronson Reed. Like, WWE's strategy clearly is this. They're like, all right, we're going to advance NXT to the point where people like Bull Dempsey, that were a complete waste of money, right? And Bull Dempsey was actually kind of fun because he had this, like, I don't know how to explain it, but Bull Dempsey had this, like, extremely generic look. And typically that's not good, but in this case, it worked wonders for him, you know? He had this look of just like random guy. Like he looks like the guy that would come to fix your stove. You know, when you call a company, you're like, hey, can you fix my stove? And they send over Bull Dempsey. That's what they sent over, right? So he had this like random guy look, right? But he had this tough guy, no nonsense, like, demeanor, right? So it's like he actually was one of those people that looks like a random guy that you see at a bar, but that is like that bar's tough guy, if you know what I mean, just like the toughest guy in town, basically, nothing super special looking, but just a guy that can scrap. So he had that appearance. Bronson Reed doesn't even have that. He's just a fat fuck with like a stupid, like dumbass haircut, like that stupid ass like Nazi haircut thing that's popular nowadays, where you shave one side of your head, then you let your hair grow to the left. What the fuck is that all about, Looking like a fucking rooster. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Bronson Reed, I'm not really impressed by this guy. He has like a splash finisher, nothing great about him. But I see what WWE is doing. I'm not stupid, motherfucks. I see what they're doing. What they're doing is clear. They keep inventing new titles and new things, right? So they're like, oh, okay, Bull Dempsey would have made, let's say, a great North American champion. They didn't have that shit back then. So they're like, all right, we need a title to justify the existence of the Bull Dempseys. Because if you've noticed, when people move from NXT to WWE, they don't carry their, if you will, their placement on the card with them, right? So someone like Elias, for example, he was an undercard jobber, basically, in NXT, but when he moved to WWE, he became like a mid-carder. Like almost immediately he became a mid-carder, you know what I mean? Whereas some people like Aleister Black were main eventers in NXT, and when they move, they also become mid-carders for like a week, and then after that, they become jobbers, you know what I mean? So they don't carry their placement. What works in NXT is not what works in WWE. That's the key here, So the reason I bring that up is because while Bronson Reed might be a jobber in NXT, he might become like a mid-carder in WWE. Now, not him, of course, because he's not good enough. But someone like Cameron Grimes, for example, like Cameron Grimes, I'm not saying Cameron Grimes is going to have like a Stone Cold Steve Austin career. No, but Cameron Grimes will eventually make it to the main roster, that's for sure. And I believe that he'll win. Like he'll be like Matt Riddle is now. He'll have that kind of career, you know what I mean? Or maybe like Keith Lee is now, except he won't be, in any number one contender matches for the world title, I don't think. Hopefully he will, who knows, right? But the point is, this match was complete shit. The only good thing about this match was that Cameron Grimes won, hit the cave-in, and buried this fat jobber. During the match, LA Knight distracted Bronson Reed and caused him the loss, right? This is what I was afraid of, right? If you're going to take some guy and present him as a big deal, you need to take him and push him directly to the moon, right? Him having a feud with Bronson Reed, where obviously LA Knight is going to win because Bronson Reed sucks, is a waste of everyone's time and money. Why would anyone want to see that? One of the good feuds of NXT this year, I hate to say it, has been Santos Escobar versus Karrion Kross. Because it's an unorthodox feud, Like I said in a few videos ago, it subverts expectation. You know what I mean? Like, you don't expect a Cruiserweight champion to fight like the monster heel. Especially when the Cruiserweight champion is also a heel. It really had a lot of elements that we don't see in wrestling, You might see Rey Mysterio as a Cruiserweight, I don't know, wrestling like Batista, let's say, right? That might happen. Or Kane or something like that. But you'll never see like a heel Cruiserweight champion fighting a monster heel. That was really cool. I thought it was really cool. Subvert expectations. And I believe that both men benefited from that. Karrion Kross beat a champion, and Santos Escobar, went toe-to-toe with a former champion. So there you have it, motherfucks. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I digress. That's not really the point here. The point is, Bronson Reed lost like he should have, and LA Knight, in my opinion, has now been painted more like a Bobby Roode and less so than let's say like a Seth Rollins or someone that did well at NXT and then became like a real main eventer, so to speak, right? As a matter of fact, I think even Bobby Roode, when he came in, he may have had like one filler feud, but that's it. After that, he was in the world title picture immediately, There was no screwing around with him. They knew they had something good on their hands. With LA Knight, I really do feel like they've pretty much signed a guy that they plan on making a mid-carder. So, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but it is what it is. Beyond this, NXT really had nothing there. The women's tag team match was pretty decent because, I will say, I have to admit, because it gave the impression, number one, that there was a real possibility that Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez could win the straps. That's good. It's close to WrestleMania, so you really don't expect them to win. Because it's like Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax are like main eventish type names. So like, it would make more sense for them to go to WrestleMania versus, Dakota Kai and like the newcomer Raquel Gonzalez. Nonetheless, it was what it was. That's what happened. Raquel and Dakota Kai got screwed by a Raw referee, motherfucks, who counted 1, 2, 3, but he did so on Dakota Kai, who was not the legal woman in the match. I thought this was a clever way to end it too, because number one, it kind of turned Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez into faces, at least momentary faces. It's some sort of brand supremacy type thing, right? The NXT women were screwed by the Raw referee, right? And the announcers pointed this out, and the announcers had some form of brand loyalty, you know what I mean? They're like, how can they do this? How could the Raw referee do this? You know what I mean? All that shit, and I thought that was pretty good. Now, with all that being said, obviously this demands a rematch. Could this be a WrestleMania match? It actually could, I believe. Because think about it, motherfucks. Even though Raquel Gonzalez, I keep want to saying Raquel Pennington for some reason from the UFC, but Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai, even though they're like new and they're not like on the main roster, it's like they won a tournament to get there, number one, and two, it's like if you're gonna have the women's tag team titles be defended at WrestleMania, would it really matter who the challengers are? Like, would it be any better, for example, if it was like Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus like Natalya and Naomi? Would that be better? Absolutely not. No one cares about Naomi or Natalya. This actually is an opportunity to do something cool and something new. So I enjoyed that to a degree. Shotzi Blackheart, not Shotzi Blackheart, like the other one, Kaden Carter, which to me is the same thing as Shotzi Blackheart. Like, they both have no character and are like these two crazy broads, it looks like. Kaden Carter talks about how Casey Catanzaro, her quote-unquote best friend, is hurt and out of action for a while as a result of Xia Li, right? And she pretty much says, I don't give a damn about Xia Li and this whole Chinese mystic thing, right? Which I thought was great, because who the fuck cares about this? It's stupid as shit. It's like Xia Li is it's basically just a heel. It's just like a Chinese person who's a heel now. And of course, because WWE is WWE, the Chinese person who's a heel has to have some sort of Chinese mysticism or lore behind their gimmick, which I find to be retarded. I don't think it's like racist or whatever. I just think it's stupid. You're like, why would you do this, Versus compared to the guy that Xia Li hangs out with, that guy is dressed in like a black suit. He looks like a triad, That would be a much more compelling gimmick for Chinese superstars. They're part of the triads, motherfucks. That's fucking badass. That's cool. The triads are cool. I mean, obviously they're not cool. They're pieces of shit. They're criminals. But they're cool in terms of like their appearance and all the other shit. So, there you go, that was a waste of time. Nobody cared about that. Now let's move on to AEW. I think we've pretty much covered NXT more so than I thought we would, and more so than I would have wanted to, if I'm being honest, right? But here we are, right? AEW. Now, before we get started talking about the matches and all that other stuff, I have to tell the truth. AEW Dynamite, it was a good episode, all right? People can say what they want. This was a good episode. Now, was it good as in like, was it a 6 out of 10 or above? Absolutely not. It was about a 3 or a 4 out of 10. But it was good because it had some good things. Unfortunately for AEW, these good things are typically overshadowed by the many bad things that come on the other side of the good thing, right? So perfect example, right? The show starts. I'm still watching it on my phone, playing Persona. I had to pause because I'm like, no. I gotta stop playing Persona and watch this on TV. Because this is badass, right? I couldn't believe it, They didn't really make it clear to me that Cody and what's her face and Red Velvet were gonna wrestle Shaq and Jade Cargill like that night. I knew Shaq was gonna be in attendance, right? And I thought they would have like a face down, a face off, whatever the fuck it's called, where they talk, or maybe the match gets pushed. Because I was like, there's no way this match isn't going on pay-per-view. It's fucking Shaq. You know what I mean? Like WWE wanted to put Shaq versus Big Show at WrestleMania. So I couldn't believe my eyes that this match was actually going to happen that night as the opening match. So I'm like, holy shit, pause this motherfucker, start watching it on TV. Now I'm thinking to myself, here's where it gets interesting, right? I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck are they doing this not on pay-per-view? This is a match that will actually sell pay-per-views. Not because of Cody Rhodes or Red Velvet. Like, nobody gives a fuck about these guys, or even Jade Cargill, right? Shaq will sell some pay-per-views. there are Shaq fans out there, motherfuckers. Shaq is someone that transcends the NBA. Like, there are people that don't give a shit about the NBA like myself that still like Shaq, you know? Like, I don't watch basketball anymore, but when I did, Shaq was the fucking man, you know? So I still like Shaq. Now, I'm not saying that I would go and buy the pay-per-view because of Shaq, because I'm not retarded. But it certainly will help people buy the pay-per-view, you know? The match I actually thought was fucking awesome. You know, first of all, Jade Cargill is cool as shit. Alright, they really went heavy on that whole Beth Phoenix comparison that I made first, motherfucks. She wins the match by hitting the Glam Slam, but it was badass. She hit it like in a very badass way. Like, she pretty much manhandled Red Velvet, who has absolutely nothing going for her, you know? I mean, she's a pretty girl, but that's about it. Red Velvet, I mean, like, when they introduce her, they say, coming out of, how does it go? From, like, straight out of your mama's kitchen. Her hometown is straight out of your mama's kitchen, right? Which, all right, it's clever the first time you hear it. You're like, oh, I got it. She's Red Velvet. She's like cake, you know? But then after that, it becomes stupid, you know? It's really one of those things you have to say only once, you know? And her taunt, her mannerism, is she pretends she's holding a bowl and stirring it with a giant spoon. That's her taunt. I mean, literally her gimmick is that she is cake. You know, it's not even just a name. That's like her thing. You know, oh look, I'm stirring up batter. Right? Oh, I'm from your mama's kitchen. That's so stupid, you know? So I'm glad that Jade Cargill buried this jabron, right? Shaq was awesome, which is to be expected. Like, Shaq was doing these awkward chops onto Cody. I believe they were awkward because if Shaq were to do it full strength, I think Cody would pass out from the pain. It was preposterous seeing Shaq versus Cody. Shaq is like 7'1". He's one of the biggest guys to ever enter a wrestling ring. Like, I think he's as big as Great Khali, basically, right? And honestly, he's as jacked, as muscular as the Great Khali. And he made Cody look like a child. You know? Like, the fact that Cody Rhodes is out there trying to do, like, arm wrenches and headlocks and things like that is just, it's silly. Like, Cody's plan should just be kick him in the knee. That should be the only plan he has. The match itself was cool because Shaq, first of all, did a powerbomb onto Cody. Now, the problem with this powerbomb, well, first of all, the powerbomb looked perfect, right? Cody Rhodes really lifted himself, and I believe that Shaq's superior strength made it so he could easily lift Cody up. He lifted Cody, powerbombed him. And then Cody, just after he was powerbombed, he just slapped Shaq in the face from his back. Like, he basically no-sold this powerbomb from Shaq. This powerbomb should leave him crippled. You know, this is Shaq, motherfucks, but he no-sold it completely. Shaq was eventually taken out of the match after Cody, Shaq, and friends set up a bunch of tables. Also of note is Shaq beat up Billy Gunn's kids, which was pretty cool. And like like the AEW Leon Ruff, I forget his name. He was there too. I think he beat his ass too. So eventually, Cody Rhodes does like a crossbody, like Shaq's on the apron. Cody Rhodes does a crossbody to Shaq's like face. Like, he basically clears the ropes and hits Shaq's face with his body and puts Shaq through a table. This was ridiculous. I understand the real point of the match here turned out it was just to have Jade Cargill get over. You know what I mean? Jade Cargill should be the women's champion already, in my opinion. You know, but more on that later, right? But Shaq being put through a table by Cody, right? The implication that Cody knocked out Shaq, basically, is ridiculous and is indicative of what I've been saying, that Cody Rhodes refuses to ever look bad in this company. Even when Cody Rhodes loses, he ends up looking good somehow. Like, he lost because his tag team partner, Red Velvet, is named after a cake, but Cody Rhodes took out Shaq. You know? That's ridiculous. Like, there's no way you can just look at Shaq and Cody Rhodes and you're like, in real life, Shaq would destroy Cody Rhodes in 2 seconds. Like, Cody won't even last a second. If Shaq gets his hands on him, it's a wrap. You know, which reminds me of the times when I would say the same thing about Kevin Nash and CM Punk, and all these nerd beards online would be like, oh, CM Punk knows Muay Thai. Oh, he trained with Randy Couture. If he kicks Kevin Nash on the knee, yeah, we all saw how well that Muay Thai and you know, BJJ worked out for CM Punk in real life. The guy's like unathletic as shit. I would, like, after seeing CM Punk fights, I know for a fact that I would beat up CM Punk, no problem. I don't even care if he gets 20 black belts. I'll beat his ass just because he has absolutely no stamina. That's neither here nor there, motherfucks. CM Punk, you know, good for him. He tried. But the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes size is what matters, right? Size will dominate skill or athleticism. Like, it's pretty clear that Cucky Rhodes is more athletic than Shaq right now, right? Like, if you ask both men, if you said, hey guys, why don't you go run 6 miles, right? I'm pretty sure Cody Rhodes would win that race, right? The only thing Shaq might be able to beat Cody Rhodes in would be like, powerlifting. And even then, like, even then Cody would give him a good run for his money because Cody Rhodes is young, But let's be real, when it comes down to fighting, none of that shit matters. What matters is size and strength, motherfucks. And Big Show did not come out for this Shaq segment, which I honestly understood, because I wouldn't want anyone to take away from Jade Cargill's performance, and the fact that Jade Cargill is honestly, like, if we're being honest, probably one of the most impressive women right now in wrestling, right? Like if WWE had her instead of Raquel Gonzalez, it would be much more believable, But here we are. She's an AEW broad. What can you do, motherfucks? So that was the way that they opened the show. So in my opinion, the match was great. It gets like an 8 out of 10 just because Shaq actually did things. But overall, the segment of the show gets, I'm sorry to say, a 5 out of 10, because it should have been a pay-per-view, and it made absolutely no sense the way it was portrayed now. They built this up so much, and they didn't even have it on pay-per-view. Why? Why not? So Miro and Kip Sabian can be on pay-per-view, but not Shaq? Like, have you lost your minds? Like, honestly, who is more interesting? What do you guys think the fans would love to see more? Shaq or Miro? I mean, I think it speaks for itself, right? Shaq or Miro? Which one is more worthy of your time? If Miro opened the show, I can tell you this, I wouldn't have turned off Persona 5. I'd have been playing that shit and listening to it on the background, if not fast forwarding it. But Shaq is inherently interesting. So why they didn't put this on pay-per-view, considering the fact that it also has Cucky Rhodes, which is one of their guys, this could be the pay-per-view main event. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, maybe it's because Cucky Rhodes is meant to win the little ladder match thing so he can become the number one contender for the mid-card title. Maybe that's why. Probably, honestly, right? It was what it was. Then, later on in the show, Big Show comes out. He pretty much says nothing, He pretty much says absolutely nothing except for this, that a Hall of Fame level talent will be signed and will be revealed at the pay-per-view. This was smart, right? It's like, I'm curious to see who it is. I'm not curious enough to pay $50 for it, but I'm curious, I want to know who this Hall of Fame talent is. Now, with that being said, this took away from the fact that Big Show was there. This is Big Show, motherfuckers. He's a legend, But whatever, fine. And his shirt said, no more BS. Right? Haha, clever, right? No more Big Show, it's just Paul White. Don't worry, you're going to be back to the BS in a few years, motherfucker. Believe you me. But anyways, that happened, so I'm curious to see who this new guy is, right? Or this new gal is. Probably a guy, let's be honest. Then we had the mandatory Sting versus Team Taz build-up, right? Same shit as every other week. Darby Allin and Sting slightly fought the bad guys, right? Powerhouse Hobbs is back. He didn't do anything, but at least he's back. That's good. The problem with this is this. During the brawl, I started to think to myself, why are they even having this feud? What is the purpose of this feud? There is no purpose. It's basically like Darby Allin is mid-card champion and fucking Brian Cage wants to be mid-card champion. As a result, he starts attacking Darby, and now Sting comes to save him. But why? What are Sting's motivations? Surely they don't want us to think and believe that Sting came back from retirement, joined the company, just so he can support Darby Allin, right? That can't be it. That's stupid, right? So if that's not it, then why is it? Why is Sting teaming up with Darby Allin? People need to explain these things, motherfucks. So once I started thinking about this while watching, I was like, I don't give a shit what happens. Nothing really happened. They just fought. Darby Allin, I like the kid. He can do some moves. Darby Allin was very athletic. He climbed the turnbuckle very, very quickly in this very unique way, almost like Grand Metalik does. So good for him. You know what I mean? We talked about the main event, which was complete shit. Nobody cares about the main event at all, motherfucks. Then we had like the 16th consecutive in-ring segment involving the Inner Circle. Now, I don't think in the history of factions, right, has there been 1 year where a faction has fallen so much as the Inner Circle has. Even more so, arguably, than Retribution. The Inner Circle went from like the most important faction in the show to now being a complete jobber faction. Let's call it like it is. Like Jericho, who's Jericho? He's Jericho, motherfuckers. He's like a Hall of Famer, you know? He's teaming up with MJF to wrestle the Young Bucks for the tag titles. Like, Jericho should be main eventing every pay-per-view in AEW history. But yet, here we are, motherfuckers. Here we are. That's the problem, right? That's the problem. They have this horseshit press conference where they have people asking them questions, right? And MJF is just so bad. First of all, I also realized by looking at him, I'm like, this is a fucking ugly motherfucker, man. He is an ugly dude. So the idea that he'll ever be the face of the company is ridiculous. He's not attractive enough. Simple as that. He's not a good-looking guy. You know, he's a fucking awkward-looking guy, puffy face, stupid hair, right? Burberry scarf, which was cool in 2007. You know what I mean? This guy is a dweeb. All right? He's not good-looking. He's not charismatic. He's none of the things that they want us to think he is. Right? And this was evidenced, in my opinion, not just by only his appearance, but the way that he answered the questions. Like, every question someone would ask, he would roll his eyes and be like, oh, I can't believe you asked that, you retard. Like, that was his attitude generally. Some of the questions were actually legit. Like, hey, why did you attack, you know, the Young Bucks' father, right? And his response is, oh, how could you ask me this? I can't believe it. Why would you ask this question? Like, what, are you retarded or something? Like, that's the entire point of the press conference, or press conferences in general, right? Like, and it wasn't that was his reaction to one question. Every question he had the same reaction of, oh, how could you? Why would you ask me this? Are you retarded? Are you stupid? Oh, shut up, like turkey tits or whatever. Like, all this stupid shit. Like, to have this ugly guy calling a fat guy turkey tits is ridiculous. Because to me, the turkey tits guy should be like, dude, you're ugly as shit. That should be his comeback. You're ugly as fuck, dude. The end. You're ugly as fuck. The scarf and all these other things cannot hide the fact that you're not an attractive guy. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? And think about this. Think about it this way, motherfuckers. The next time you see MJF, especially if you see him next to like someone like Jericho, who's like classically good looking, right? Even now, think about all the things that MJF does to appear the way he does. He wears these custom fitted suits. He wears like a nice scarf. He stands up straight. He shaves. You know, he grooms himself, and he still looks like that. You know what I mean? Versus like if you compare him to like, I don't know, let's say someone who was good looking but no one really cared about, like Shannon Moore. Like Shannon Moore will come out dressed as however he wants. People are like, oh shit, Shannon Moore's a good looking guy, right? Or Jeff Hardy or someone like that, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm actually like I see why the women scream when Jeff Hardy takes off his shirt. Even though he never had this great physique, they care because they're attracted to Jeff Hardy, right? Nobody would ever be attracted to MJF. It's stupid. You know? But that's neither here nor there. The point is, this press conference was total shit. Like, nothing was gained from this. The questions were answered in an MJF fashion, which begs the question of, like, in reality, like, if someone was treating reporters this poorly, right, why the fuck would anyone care about this guy? It's not like he's achieved anything, you know? This is, like, if he was the champion, all right, fine. But he's not even a tag team champion. And they're not going to win the titles, probably, so who cares? You know? There you have it, motherfuckers. That's what I have to say about that. The rest of the show was just there. So I give this show a 4 out of 10, only because of the fact that there was a treat. Or there's two treats, I should say. Treat 1, Shaquille O'Neal, and treat 2, I hate to say it, motherfuckers, Tully Blanchard. You know, now, Tully Blanchard came out, and people like JR pretended he was a big deal, you know? Like, I know they're supposed to be a big deal, but he really isn't. Let's be real, motherfuckers. Let's be real. It would be like if Right to Censor, like, it would be like if Val Venus became a multiple-time world champion, and then Bull Buchanan came out like 20 years later, 30 years later, and people are like, he was part of one of the greatest factions of all time that had Val Venus as the champion. Like, the entire reason why the Horsemen are famous is because of Ric Flair. Like, nobody gives a shit about the three other guys. I've already told you guys my story of meeting Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard being there, and me and other people being like, who the fuck is this guy? Which one of them is he? Is he only? Which one is he? Who the fuck is this guy, right? But I will say this. I give props where props are due. Tully Blanchard came out. He took some bumps. He was in incredibly good shape for the old bag that he is, right? And they won the match, which was interesting. I like that, right? Because it seemed, I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, if they won the match, because Tully Blanchard's first match in like 30 years or whatever, or more. But it was good to see them win the match because people were really, really behind Jurassic Express for the last few weeks. Rightfully so, but they were behind them, right? And how did they win the match? I'll tell you how, motherfucks. A random guy, a cameraman-looking motherfucker, interferes and hits someone on the head. This allows FTR to pick up the guy in like a double pile driver and Tully Blanchard to hit the spiked pile driver on his bitch ass. I think it was Luchasaurus. And pin him 1, 2, 3. Now, the guy who's masked comes in, right? He comes in like a motherfucker. And what happens? People are like, oh, who could this be? Who could this be? He takes off his mask and it's none other than a bleached blonde Ty Dillinger. Just when you thought this guy couldn't get any worse, he bleached his hair. This is right there, motherfucks, with the time when he put the blue contacts on to, I guess, portray himself as being a very cold, cold man. Right? This was embarrassing. He came out with bleached blonde hair. He's almost 40. You know what I'm saying? He's almost 40, if not older, to be honest, right? And he comes out with bleached blonde hair. Like, dude, we get it. You don't have a personality. You're not good at what you do. You're not entertaining. But changing your appearance, much like Cody Rhodes changed his appearance when he was in WWE all the time, growing the mustache, like dashing, undashing, all this other shit. You know, a little chest tattoo. Now he has the blonde hair as well. Right? Like, these things are not working out when you don't have a personality. And what's his face? Ty Dillinger was the best example of this. I thought this was stupid. This guy has Jabba written all over him. If their plan is to start the Four Horsemen again, which seems to be the way they're going, because Arn Anderson came out and gave like a 4. He did like a 4 sign with his hand, right? And they all, Tully Blanchard and this other guy who was there in the ring, I don't even know who the fuck this guy is, both held up the 4 sign. You know, the implications being that like they need a 4th guy. You know, who better than Cucky Rhodes, right? Cucky Rhodes, Shawn Spears, and FTR. The new Four Horsemen. Jobber edition. Bleached blonde edition. Shitty haircut edition. You know? It is what it is. If they do it, do it. It'll mean nothing. It'll basically be the mid-card version of the Four Horsemen. Which is actually probably better, because the Four Horsemen, as far as I'm concerned, had 1 main eventer, Ric Flair, and 3 undercard guys. Let's call it like it is. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Maybe this is what causes Cody Rhodes to be like, I want a title shot. I know I said I wouldn't get one, but I lied. I changed my mind. Fuck you all. Yeah? Which I think would be actually a good way to turn him heel. Nonetheless, this happened. Bleached blonde. Shawn Spears came out. He looked like shit. You know, this guy needs to just like pick one haircut, honestly. But whatever. It is what it is. That happened. The show wasn't that good. And here we are, motherfucks. Here we are, cuck boys. Alright? Here we are. Was it good? Not really. 4, maybe 5 out of 10, because I forgot about the Tully Blanchard thing, but definitely better than NXT. I will say that, right? Better than NXT. I mean, you can't really deny that anymore, right? Like this, especially this week. Way better than NXT. Like, I would much rather see Shaq versus Cody Rhodes, right, than see Adam Cole versus Finn Balor next week. I would much rather see, like, basically everything that I saw in AEW was better than almost everything that I saw last night on NXT. And that's how it goes, you know? NXT needs to like really step it up, find new wrestlers, find a new champion, maybe LA Knight, who knows, right? But this Finn Balor experiment isn't working, you know? Like putting him back to NXT really showed what he is, a jobber. A jobber can't even lead NXT properly. So there we go. Let's move forward from that and on to next Wednesday, motherfucks, for another edition of the Wednesday Night Motherfuckers. The Wednesday Night Wars, bitches. Alright, this video went on way too long, but there was a lot to talk about, so kiss my ass.